What it is, it's the Flowster. Let's get going. So I want to preface by saying that this video was already done and ready to go out today, but then a post came out a few hours ago entitled, Equipment Rebalance Postponed. I mean, I'm glad it's happening, but I was shocked to see it. Everything that I'm talking about in this video is still relevant because it's still a current proposal. Nothing has changed in that department, but they are waiting on pushing out the update. So throughout this video, I'll say the word tomorrow a lot because this update was supposed to go live with the game update tomorrow. This is no longer the case. They did not mention when the update would come, but that they still need it out before Combat Achievements is released. So keep that in mind when watching this, but my thoughts and coverage do not change. I'm glad they're taking more time to get this right. Okay, with that said, let's talk about the current proposals. So let's open this bad boy up. We're talking about Blessed Dragonhide here. So it's actually going to be keeping all of its stats. So this is the D-Hide from Clue Scrolls. Other Dragonhide armors will be nerfed with the current proposals, which is a thick reduction in melee defense and a slight reduction in mage and range defense. Okay, next up is the Din's Bulwark, aka the You Shall Not Pass shield, is becoming the You Shall Pass shield. It's getting a -10 to magic defense, a 25% reduction in melee defense, and a 10% buff in range defense. The changes here are strictly from a PvP perspective, which I think is the wrong way to think about it, because the example that they gave is if you have a Din's on, you don't have to do anything except eat and put on Protect from Magic. But what wasn't mentioned is, okay, what does the attacker have to do? And the only thing the attacker has to do is click on you, slap some specs, and cast a spell every 15 seconds, because since you have the shield on, they don't have to worry about countering you, right? They don't have to worry about eating or staying alive, because you're obviously not fighting back. So in this case, the player with the Dins is risking everything, while the attacker essentially risks nothing, unless some rando comes out of nowhere and attacks them off of the guy with the Dins. And people probably already do this with alt accounts. The Dins isn't the only strong defense item. You can do a Staff of the Dead and a Dragonfire Shield combo, which is arguably even stronger than the Dins because of the 1 minute of 50% melee damage reduction that the Staff of the Dead special attack would provide. Plus, the DFS gives a +10 to magic defense. So the Dins change here, I think, is unnecessary. I mean, where's the Dins even used at in PvP? Just Black Chins, Chaos Altar, Dark Rabs? Is that it? Well, you're not going to put that crap on when you're doing clues, are you? I never do. The 20% damage reduction that you would get with the Dins when on block mode already doesn't apply to PvP. Just like how the Blowpipe doesn't attack at full PVM attack speed. A lot of people are unhappy with this Dins change. It is what it is. Alright, moving on to these personal bests. They are not being reset. Their reasoning is that many personal bests are not being affected by these changes. At the end of the day, it doesn't really matter since there isn't a high score table for personal bests, and because of this, maybe kill times will transfer over retroactively whenever the Combat Achievements is released. Moving on to the big hitter, the Blowpipe is going bye-bye with a 20% DPS reduction. Remember, the Blowpipe was brought in because range was the weakest skill of the combat triangle. But it's been 6 years since then, and they want to nerf it. It'll make a lot of content slower, but my real only concern with the Blowpipe nerf right now is the Inferno and the heavy RNG aspect of the Zuck wave, where it's ideal to kill the Ranger spawn in one cycle, right? And obviously, you're going to get more than one Ranger spawn. So you'll have to, manipulate that at least twice. And now what you might have to do instead is off-tick the Major and Ranger, and the Zuck healers will also harass you a lot more since they'll persist longer because you're going to be killing them slower. And keep in mind that this also applies throughout the entire Inferno, so it's going to take you 20% longer if you're mostly blowpiping it. So it's a pretty big deal because that was pretty much the most common way to do the content. They did mention in this post that some NPCs may have stat adjustments to account for this change. So if you look right here, there's Lizardman Shamans and Basinisterio from Raids 1. So maybe they might do something with the Inferno, but I wouldn't get your hopes up with that. Alright, this other stuff can be ignored. Lizardman Shamans, They have a couple DPS comparisons here just for Lizardman Shamans. The biggest thing here really is that it's going to be 20 to 30% slower with Addy Darts when this update goes live. The big thing to remember is that if you use Addy Darts right now, if you change to Dragon Darts after the update goes live, you'll still be doing less damage than you would at Addy, or at least less DPS, which is absolutely insane because Addy Darts would run you around 350k an hour if you use the blowpipe the whole time. Well, Dragon Darts would run you closer at like 2 mil an hour. Oh, and Forecath is going to be 40% slower if you're using a blowpipe with Addy Darts, and that's with Full Elite Void with a Salvam EI. So 40% slower, yikes. Okay, so that's all the big things that they just retouched on and added clarity to. But for those of you who haven't been following any of these changes, I'll go ahead and recover everything else that's, still changing, so you're completely informed of what's going to come out tomorrow. So starting off, there's about a dozen weapons that are having their item wield requirements changed. I did a video on this already talking about it and providing my thoughts, so I'll link that in the description. We'll focus on everything else that hasn't been covered here yet. Alright, so the Twisted Bow is going from 75 range to 85 range. I'm mentioning the wield requirement change on this one because it isn't mentioned above with the other images. Also, the Twisted Bow is losing a +4 prayer bonus. Apparently it's for lore reasons. They're saying it's not it doesn't fit since it's not considered a godly item, but it's a 1 bill item and all the prayer bonus is being removed. So that's going to be a no for me. A God Sword gives a +8 to prayer. I think you can keep a +4 on it and not call it a godly item. If we go down the lore rabbit hole, I'm sure we'll have many more problems down the road. Alright, Dragon Hide Armor and Blessed Hide we talked a little bit about earlier, so I'll be brief. Biggest thing to note is that the range attack bonus of Black D-Hide is the same as Carol's. So it's still a great super cheap option if defense isn't an issue. If defense is an issue, you'll have to step up to Blessed D-Hide or Carol's. I actually agree with the D-Hide change here because Black D-Hide was always better than Carol's unless you needed more mage defense. And that doesn't make any sense when looking at the skill tree. Dens, we talked about it enough, but here's a comparison for y'all to look at so you can kind of see these are the numbers that we spoke about, and then here are the actual stat differences. So it's a pretty significant change. So moving on to the blowpipe, we talked about this one as well, but I did miss talking about the special attack accuracy here being buffed to have an increased 100% accuracy. But keep in mind that they are halving the base attack accuracy, right? So it's currently 60, tomorrow it's going to be 30. So when you make it 100% accurate in that one special, that's just going to take you to 60 again. So the buff isn't going to do anything. In fact, overall the special attack is going to be worse than what it is today because you're also losing a portion of your damage. So don't worry, you'll still have plenty of zeros from your blowpipe specs just like you always have. But it's very misleading because it seems like, oh yeah, the blowpipe's going to be awesome to use now for the special, at least the special. No, the special isn't going to be anything special. Oh, and they changed this from 75 range to 78. They didn't have that at the top with the other items either. If you look down here at the darts, just looking at the proposed strengths, you can see right now, if we just look at Addy, so Addy's staying the same, 10 and 10. We'll look at the other ones too. So Rune, 14 to 20, Dragon, 20 to 28. And you're like, okay, well, the proposed strength is actually higher, so what do you mean I'm going to be hitting less? Go back to the weapon and look. You have 40 strength here, and now you only have 25. So on here on these proposed, you need to subtract 15 from all of these, and that's going to show you where it stacks against what it is today. And then I guess the last thing for the blowpipe, as you can see, comparing new to old, here's a short breakdown of what's going to happen tomorrow. So if we look at Addy, the Addy old gives you a 50 in-game strength, while the Addy new is going to put you at 35. So that goes to the 15 that I was talking about earlier. I mentioned way earlier at the beginning of this video when we talked about blowpipe today with Addy darts is going to be worse than blowpipe tomorrow with dragon darts. That's true. You can look at it right here. So you're going from 50 strength to 53. So the dragon darts will have 3 more strength bonus, so you might look at 1 more hit, right? Like if you could do a 30, you might do a 31 with, I mean, if you could do a 30 today with Addy Darts, you might be able to do a 31 tomorrow with Dragon Darts. But the problem here is the accuracy is humongous. You're going from 71 to 45. So from a DPS standpoint, over time, you're going to be doing less damage by far. As I said, it's just insane because to get that same amount, it's not even the same because the accuracy is so different. So you could pay 2 mil an hour with Dragon Darts and your blowpipe still isn't going to be as strong as it was with Addy Darts. Craziness. That is craziness. Wow. Okay, moving on to the buffs. The Dragon Bone Necklace and Bone Crusher Necklace. So the prayer requirement is actually being reduced from 80 to 70, and they're removing the delay that you would get when you swap out necklaces. So and they're actually giving it some stats, as you can see down here, that we'll touch on in a second. As a reminder, the Dragon Bone Necklace gives you prayer points whenever you kill a creature that would drop bones, but it's actually really crappy. You would get like 1 prayer point back if you kill a creature that would drop regular bones. You get 2 prayer points back for big bones, like etc. So it's not great. Even still, with this change, I could see it being a viable swap slot for some Slayer tasks where you kill creatures very quickly, like maybe with a cannon or ice barrages. You would only use it with a swap though, and it does not stack with the Catacombs of Korend prayer restoration effect. I'm glad both of these necklaces are finally seeing some love, and it's not just because I have 100 of both of them in the bank. In all seriousness, whether this was the right decision or not, who knows? I probably would have just removed all the stats altogether, gave it a +10 prayer instead of a +12, kept the 9-second delay when swapping, and then quadrupled its effect for the prayer restoration. So now it would just be a +10 prayer ammy that you could use to offset some prayer potion cost. It's still balanced because it has no other stat bonuses, so your Slayer tasks and kills would be slower than if you wore Fury and drank prayer pots. Plus, it's a nice goal to shoot for as an Iron Man because it requires a 1 in 1,000 drop rate from Vorkath, and then you need the Hydra Tail from Hydra at a 1 in 513 drop rate. And both of those creatures have significant requirements. You know, you got Dragon Slayer 2 and then 95 Slayer. And because of the way that the necklace effect works, it would not be viable at any boss, so it doesn't devalue any Hydrix or Fury by any means. Alright, Crystal Armor and Crystal Bow. They're buffing the set from 15% to 20%. This is a damage boost, and the set effect that I'm referring to is the Crystal Helm, Crystal Body, Crystal Legs with a Crystal Bow. So you need all of that to get a 20% damage boost, up from 15. And it also gives you a 30% accuracy bonus, as you can see up here. So it might actually see some use now because the blowpipe is being nerfed, but I don't really expect this to change the meta too much, but I guess we'll find out through testing. Okay, now for some weird ones. Warhammers. Warhammers will no longer require any attack levels. Warhammers are also having their strength bonuses buffed up to rune. So a Dragon Warhammer stats will stay the same, but it will change. The Dragon Warhammer will change though from 60 attack to 60 strength, which means a really low level peer with 1 attack could probably smack some really high hits at, you know, a really low level because of the way that the Dragon Warhammer special attack works. Alright, on to Maces, Spears, and Hostas. Attack speed is going from 5 ticks to 4 ticks, which is the same speed as Scimitars. I think this, as well as the Warhammer change, are actually both welcome. There isn't any variety at the lower levels, and now with this change, you'd actually be able to viably switch weapons depending on stab, crusher, slash weaknesses of, you know, whatever it is that you're fighting. So I think it's great because it's always just been Scimitar, 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 which, I mean, technically you can still do that because that's not getting any worse. So if you still want that old school, right, vibe of Scimitar, 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 you can still do it. I think it's cool that they're bringing all of this versatility into the mix, especially at the lower levels. And you know what? I think that all of this is deliberate I think the timing is deliberate for the Steam release, right? Because the Steam release is probably going to get a small influx of players, potentially a large influx of players, right? And a lot of those people are going to be new to the game. And if they actually go in there and they're comparing the items to each other, they're going to be like, scimitar, scimitar, scimitar. So I'm glad that this is seeing some versatility, because today, if someone were to play a new MMO and they're like, scimitar, 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 this probably follows the same trend. At the higher levels, this is kind of boring. So I'm actually very pleased with this change. I think it'll be good for the game. Okay, last change is to metal armors. Basically, all you need to know here is that the negative range attack bonus for full helms, kite shields, and plate bodies will be increased by 50%, which sounds like a lot, but the numbers were low to begin with, as you can see. So by the same token, though, med helms, which, yeah, they're down here, med helms and square shields are going to have their negative range attack bonus completely removed. It already doesn't exist on chain bodies, if you were wondering. They're trying to distinguish between light armor and heavy armor. So this change would give more versatility in gameplay for melee and range combo setups. I like it. It's minor, but welcomed. Okay, the last thing to mention here is that the net is not face guard has been scrapped. So well, I should say the change has been scrapped. So the stats will not be altered. They will be changing the mechanics of the Basilisk Knight creatures, though. So what are we looking at here? They're going to remove the annoying special attack from them, but keeping it on the superior version, as well as buffing the superior version so that you can't auto-retaliate out of the special attack. I think that's a good middle ground. These damn creatures were so annoying. I got a jaw drop at 1700 KC, and I am never going back, ever. Alright, so I think that's going to do it for this one. Pretty sure I covered everything. Let me know your thoughts. Really curious what everyone else thinks now that everything has been put on the table. And remember, go with the flow.